Is this new?
Yeah, I mean, there's always been estrangements, right? Forever there's been estrangements. But it's new the way we think
Look at
about
her face.
family. There's been a radical change in the way that we think about family. Today, protecting my mental health is the single most common thing that I see in every single letter from every estranged adult
And
child.
has this been exacerbated or has this increased because of social media?
Oh, there's no question. Absolutely. Yeah, because you've got...
And I'm glad it's the single most reason that people come and they say they're estranged from their family members because of their mental health. We've underplayed mental health so much to the point where now that people are talking about it, we make it seem like it's so over exaggerated or that it doesn't have a significant part in how we, let's say, move throughout the world. If you are in connection with someone who is bothering your mental health on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, what would be the point of continuing to stay in contact with that person, especially when they don't have repentance?
Therapists are sort of green-lighting a lot of estrangements, particularly when you use language like, oh, your mom's a narcissist, or your dad's a borderline, or they're a sociopath, or they're gaslighting you, or they're a boundary crosser. And once you say that to somebody, once you tell somebody that their parent or their family member or their child is that way, you just greenlit them cutting them off. Because now it's a virtuous act of protecting your mental health.
I don't get the point that he's trying to make, because either the therapist is correctly diagnosing their family member or their parent based on the information that the person has given, or they're not. You know what I mean? So let's say your mother is a boundary crosser. As a therapist, are you just not supposed to say that because you don't want them to take that as a green light for them to cut off their parent? Like that, in my opinion, that is not your job.
Say to them, perhaps you should go no contact.
Yeah, I don't say that.
You don't say that.
I don't say that.
You let them decide
well,
for
my
themselves.
job as a therapist is to help people
come to their own conclusions.
Well, not only come to their own conclusions, but I want them to be able to turn within and test out their own inner guidance. In other words, get back in touch with their own feelings and how things affect them. Helping people to understand the dynamics of the relationship, how it's affecting them, and then they make the decision about what they want to do.
Well, how do you talk to...
Bingo, like I just said, the job of a therapist is to accurately describe what's going on, and then it's our job to decide what we do about it. It's not the therapist's job to be careful about certain language because they don't want us to come to a certain conclusion that may be distancing ourselves from our parents.
Have we set expectations? Are they even clear about a problem? Because sometimes we haven't talked to people about the problems we're talking about in therapy or with our friends, and they need to know.
One, I do agree that you should communicate the expectations you have and not do this mind reading situation, because some of us really expect others to be mind readers, and I think that is so unfair. People are not mind readers, including your parents. But once you have communicated that and they refuse to agree to reasonable boundaries, reasonable behavior expectations, I don't really see an issue with going low or no contact. I'm not no contact with my parents. I am low contact with them. And that has been so, in my opinion, that has been so good for my mental health. And I want to stay low contact with them until or unless they figure out like, hey, I do want to respect Sheree's boundaries. But if not, I'm not negotiating with that. I'm not negotiating with you talking to me respectfully. That's not going to be up for negotiation, okay?
Was my parents, we found through friends, were scheduling lunches to have conversation with my friends where the topic was, we're worried about Chris. That was the first thing. And then it became, can we delay this engagement or can we...
Asking your friends.
Yes, or can we take this marriage off the table? Now, in spite of that, we really...
First of all, that is some crazy stuff for your parents to conspire behind your back to your friends to try to influence you to get rid of your spouse. Now, I'm going to continue to listen because I don't know if they're going to eventually say what was supposedly so wrong with her that they felt the need to do this. But so far, I haven't heard anything other than they don't like this. And I don't really know what that means or why that would move you as parents to go and conspire behind your back to break up somebody that your son genuinely likes. So I'm going to continue to hear this, but that is crazy. That is crazy. Okay.
The way that we perceived it is that they were expressing that this wasn't the pace that they expected us to move at. And we had already gotten married before they had wanted. and now we were having children before, was their timeline.
Yeah.
And I left that call. I said, let's regroup, let's have another conversation. And when we did have that conversation and I expressed how I had felt and how hurtful that was, rather than being met with the empathy and some repair that we would have really hoped for, I was met with what they described as they were embarrassed by us. And that was actually the last conversation that I had with my parents before going no contact 4 years ago.
It's not a solution just to cut somebody out for no reason, of course. But if there are reasons, there are people that the role model that you're becoming is, if there are people that are harmful to you emotionally, you do have the right to keep as much distance, maybe not total cutoff or whatever. You have the right to decide the optimal distance that you're going to have in your relationship with them. That is preparing them for adult life. So I don't see it as you giving them carte blanche about cut anybody out that you don't like. You're saying, you have to come to that decision about what's best for you. And we would be here to talk with you about that if you ever needed that.
You should not negate how you feel to keep someone constantly in your presence, and that basically the only form of conflict resolution is to try at whatever cost to keep this person in close proximity to you, regardless of how this affects you emotionally, which he didn't add any type of nuance to it. That other guy, I'm putting his name on the screen, he didn't add any type of nuance to it. So I'm glad she swooped in and said that. Hey, there are times where you're going to have to do conflict resolution and you don't have to cut people off. And there are times where you do.
Work. And it was a phone call where I tried to set a boundary of just, don't talk so rudely about your children. Like, we're not punching bags. And my mom is actually the one that blocked me initially. So she's the one that laid down that foundation, and I followed suit and just cut off contact everywhere else.
I hear you have a question for Dr.
So it's so crazy. I'm so glad that she said that, because I'm reacting in real time, so I don't know what they're going to say. This whole idea that older generations can speak to us or about us any way that they feel like doing, and we're not supposed to have any opinion about that. We're not supposed to set boundaries about that. And not only that, when they get old and decrepit, we're supposed to be wiping their stinking booty holes. No, we're not doing that. Like, I would be so interested to see how many boomers and Gen X are in nursing homes because their millennial and Gen Z kids refuse to take care of them because of the bad treatment that they have given their kids throughout their years. Do you really think I'm going to wipe your poopy butt when you're old, when you've been talking to me crazy out your mouth for years? You have got to be out of your mind. You got to be out of your mind. No. And I forgive you. And the answer is no, I'm not doing it.
I love my life. Like,
Okay.
I have 5 animals. So I've created my own family. When I went off to college, I am used to spending holidays alone. So it's not like much has changed. I'm just not being walked all over, actually. So I know peace for the first time. It's amazing. I felt my nervous system leave fight or flight. And
I think this is so fascinating to me because I've been doing this so long.
The peace is underrated. There is that longing, like she says. My husband has a very good relationship with his mother, and there are times where I am very jealous of their relationship. She calls, she checks in on him. I feel like she would give the skin, not even just her shirt, the skin off her back for her son. And to know that I don't have that mother sometimes does make me feel some type of way. But the peace that I have not being in contact with her constantly is like no other.
So what often happens is an adult child, like any of you, may come up to your parent and go, you emotionally abused me, you neglected me, you traumatized me. And your parents are going to be like, what the hell? I would have killed for a childhood like yours.
Yes.
So generations are talking past each other. I mean, it's kind of incumbent on us as parents to really learn how to speak the language of our adult children if we want to have a relationship with them. But that is one of the most significant changes, is our expanded views of what constitutes abuse and harm.
And that has changed.
That
I agree. There is an expanded view. There are some times where I feel like we have gone a little bit too far as millennials and Gen Z. I'm not going to act like we don't constitute any type of emotional disturbance as abuse. I don't like that from our generation. However, this whole redefining of what abuse neglect is, I don't know if it's so much of a redefining as it is an acknowledgement. Like, if we were to outline the things that happened in our childhood and they were to match that to the things that they had happened in their childhood, they probably would resonate that. It probably would resonate to them as abuse or neglect if they allowed it to resonate with them. I was reading before I got to doing this video that older generations, Gen X and Boomers, weren't allowed to speak on these type of things. They were told to suck it up. It wasn't things that was acknowledged, right? But that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. So when he says this redefining of these type of terms, I don't know if it's a redefining versus just an acknowledgement, because I don't know if I go in the dictionary and I look up what emotional abuse, neglect, and all this other stuff was 50 years ago and compare it to their childhood, I don't think that their situations wouldn't fit the definition of neglect. Did they acknowledge it as neglect? I don't know. Probably not. But that doesn't mean that we have now changed the definition of it.
You've decided no contact with your mom. What happened?
Yeah, so my mom abruptly stepped away from our family when I was 6 years old to be with someone else. And not only did she leave my dad, she didn't want to be a mother to me at that point either. And so throughout
So your mom basically abandoned you.
Yes.
When
She-
you were 6.
Yep. She didn't, she was just like,
She left to go with an old boyfriend.
yep, she decided to go be with her college boyfriend, and she wanted to kind of just live this new child-free life. And it was very jarring and traumatic for me because I was used to having a 2-parent household and doing things with them, and just, it was just a night and day. And at that point, she just kind of stepped away, didn't really have as much contact, would see her sometimes. It was very off and on, and I would try. And whenever I would try, I felt like I would be let down. And it's hard for me because it's like, you know, I understand, you know, like that she is my mother and this whole you only have one mother thing. However, we did not have that relationship. And so what weighs on my heart and mind a lot is the forgiveness. And sometimes I'm like, will I ever be able to just forgive her and let this go? Because it's like, you know, some people's mothers have passed away. My mother lived 20 minutes from me my whole life, you know, and just didn't want to be there.
And didn't see you.
Yeah, and just didn't want to see me by choice.
You feel the
I do not like that. You could say the most traumatic stuff that has happened to you, and you only have one mother. It is extremely invalidating to your experience of your mother, and it's almost as if they equate biology to like your mother being trustworthy or being emotionally available to you, mother or father. I'm just using mother because that was her example. And I don't really understand the point that you're trying to make. So regardless of how this person behaves, because they're biologically my mother or father, I'm supposed to what? Tolerate any type of behavior? I don't like, I wish they would just say that. I wish they would just say, instead of, hey, you only have one mother, I wish they would say, hey, you know, regardless of how they treat you, you should tolerate any type of toxic behavior. I feel like then we could have a realistic conversation, because you only have one mother, you only have one father. To me, I feel like it's cold. And I'm just like, not cold, but I feel like it's code for something. And I feel like you should just say what you need to say with your chest. You want me to accept BS. So just say that.
I think you have to accept that people can birth a child without parenting them. And what I'm hearing in your situation is you have a mother, but you don't have the nurturing of one. And it's very hard.
Amen. Amen. People can birth a child without mothering them. We tend to talk about the absent father or the estranged father, not that we like push the father out, but that he decided not to be present in his child's life, and we call him a sperm donor, right? But we don't say anything about the mother who had the child and then did little to no nurturing whatsoever. And that's why the whole thing of like, oh, she's your mother, I don't get it. If we don't have that relationship, then we don't have that relationship. I can't manufacture feelings of care for somebody that I don't have that type of empathetic and nurturing relationship with. I am so excited for the parents' perspective. I will say, as a person who has gone low contact with their parents and no contact with other family members, I rarely hear their perspective. And one of the reasons why is because I don't even know if my people care. Like, I don't.
I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this one, but I don't care. So I'm going to address a comment that repeatedly gets commented on my posts and other people talking about estrangement. And it's the comment that says, your children are not estranging from you to hurt you. They're doing it to protect themselves. I call BS. What are they protecting themselves from with us? Loving parents who've always supported them, loving parents who's always, done everything in their power to be there for them, who financially has supported them, who has went out of their way and put their life on the back burner for their kids. What are they protecting themselves?
She knows I'm a good person. She even, we made.
Did you see that? Like that eye thing of like, does she know you're a good person? Like, I don't know. The cameraman knows what he's doing. Like that was funny.
TikToks together. She made me beautiful TikTok and that I have pinned on my profile, and literally Mother's Day. And then 2 weeks later, there was a conflict. So my daughter, she is smart. She's funny. She was a joy to raise. She's a college graduate, but I feel she lacks conflict resolution skills. And I just feel like my question to the therapist is how do we move forward to help parents and children that weren't in abusive parents? Like, a lot of us are really good parents. We aren't deserving of this. How do we teach parents and children that we can work through the messy, hard stuff so that we can talk and not go no contact? Because I'm not going to lie, like, it's been 3.5 years, no word at all. And the glimmer of hope of us ever reconnecting is going away.
And this is what I agree about on the other side, this whole thing of not giving the person the opportunity to reconcile. So many of us, and I would say us younger people, millennials and Gen Z, are so conflict avoidant to the point where we expect people to read our minds. And then if there is a situation, you don't tell people explicitly and directly what the situation is, and you go straight to the cutoff. And I don't agree with that. I am a direct person. I believe in open communication. I probably over communicate, but that to me is what's necessary, especially in situations like this. And when people say like, oh, people are cutting off their parents for no reason, I don't know if it's for no reason, but once again, you have to give people the opportunity to talk about it. This parent right here who's saying that she can't control what hurts her daughter and that she's more than willing to take accountability and responsibility. Like, I wish I had parents who had that type of mentality. We would be 100% okay if I had parents who had this type of mentality. I'm the person that goes to my parents wanting a conversation and I'm met with defensiveness. I don't have parents like her who's like, yeah, we can talk about any and everything. And I'm sitting up here talking about, I don't want to talk, this and the third. So I'm going to have to call out our generation, millennial and Gen Z, on this. If you are a person who cut off your family member and had no contact with them and didn't have a conversation, didn't even give them the option to sit down and talk with you to see what's going on, I say we have to do better.
But this idea that it's only bad parents who are getting cut off, I'm sorry, I call bull on that.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. You agree with my TikTok.
Thank you so much. I wanted to now bring in Aaron. Aaron is a husband and father of 4 whose oldest daughter chose to go no contact for 3 years before reconciling.
Correct.
Take a look at what he shared with other parents about that experience.
Parents, no one prepares you for the silence after no contact with your adult children. Just did everything I thought that I was supposed to.
Yeah.
But what she told me, and when we had the conversation, she said, Dad, you're a helicopter parent. I said, a helicopter parent? I didn't even know what that was. Again, I didn't know what that was. She told me I was a helicopter parent. And a helicopter parent is a parent that wants to fix everything. And then I started thinking about it. She was right. I was a helicopter parent. I was trying to fix everything. I was always doing too much. I was overstepping my boundaries. And I had to realize that and understand that.
But weren't you doing that as a man, providing for his family, trying to protect his family, wanting the best for your children? You were not doing that because you were trying to inhibit her. You were doing that because you wanted the best for your children.
Correct.
Yes.
But then she also told me I didn't listen. She wasn't wrong about that either. I don't listen.
Okay.
I'm hard-headed. You know what I mean?
I'm glad he's acknowledging that. And I understand Oprah's perspective, but being a helicopter parent, especially as your child grows older and especially once they get into adulthood, is not good at all. The kids who are raised around helicopter parents or overly controlling parents, these are usually the kids that rebel because there was little to no sense of freedom. And it's almost as if you're shaking up Coke in a bottle, and literally once he gets just an inch of air, it's gonna like burst out. And that's what happens with kids who grow up around helicopter parents. Like that's just not okay. And then he admitted that he doesn't listen. Being around a parent who don't listen, who thinks they're always right, who thinks their perspective is the only perspective that is valid, it is something that is very like stressful to be around. So I am glad that he acknowledged that he was like that as well, and it wasn't just him being a helicopter parent.
She came over, we talked, and that's when she told me, she said, Dad, you're a helicopter parent. And I'm gonna tell you
So you were
something.
willing to help her even though she hadn't spoken to you all these years?
Oh, yeah, that's my baby.
Yeah, okay.
What can we do? She said, I'll tell you what we can do. We can go to therapy. As a man, I did not want to go to therapy. I'm gonna be real with y'all today. The therapist told me, she said, listen, Aaron, what you gotta do and you gotta understand, you have to parent your children at different stages differently. You're still trying to control her like she's a teenager. You're still trying to do too much like she's a teenager. She's a full-fledged adult.
Yeah.
Understand that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that changed my whole outlook.
Yeah.
And then the therapist also told her she has to learn how to communicate and stop running.
Through this.
I just said this transition between treating your kid as if they're underage versus them being an adult. There is a transition that needs to be made. And it's so ironic because he's a Black father that said this, and I said that this seems like something that goes on within the Black community. I'm not no other race, so I don't know what goes on in other communities, but it seems like there should be a maturation process while the kid matures, the way you parent has to mature as well. For the Hispanic community, there's this quinceañera, and I forgot what it is for a boy, but I heard from my Hispanic friend that it's a transition from childhood to early adulthood. That's what the party and everything signifies for the most part, right? However, in Black culture and some other cultures, there's no such thing. You are a child. And because I birthed you, you are a child. There is not this distinction between you're an adult now and I should be interacting with you as if you were an adult. Even as you get, like I would say 14, 15 and above, you are a young adult now. You are a growing adult now. I'm going to interact with you differently than how I would interact with you if you were 8. And it gets frustrating because it's like you said, it's constricting. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need you to be doing all this stuff or to be all up in my business.
And I agree with what you said earlier, too. In our generation, the way we grew up, you loved your parents no matter what.
Yeah.
They're not doing that no more. They're not doing that anymore. And now that you think about it, hey, I can see some of these situations, I understand.
And I don't think that adult kids who estrange themselves from their parents don't love them, but we're not tolerating any and everything. And that was the expectation, that you tolerated any and every type of treatment. And that was signifying love. And we don't think that's love anymore. We don't think that you have to be around that to love your parents now.
And that's the willingness to self-reflect.
Correct.
That is the change agent. Because if you can't reflect on your own behavior and say, gee, I wonder if there was something I did that may have contributed to this. A lot of times when people are scared and they're in fear of loss, their first reaction, of course, is to be defensive.
Once again, it is a It is a posture, a heart posture. If you are parented by people who think that they are infallible and that nothing they do is wrong, and that you don't know as much as they do, just by default, regardless, any situation, any circumstance, this is never going to come about. And it's so sad. It really is.
Yeah, my sons communicate well with me. The problem is it's not all on my daughter. I'm not saying that, but she has cut her father off. She's cut other people off. When there's a conflict, I feel like she lacks those skills with anyone, not just me.
Well, is it that she lacks the skills or that she lacks the feeling of personal power? That she could
Okay,
stand.
and you
I
just
don't
said
know.
something, and this is definitely not a criticism, but I'm just going to say that, but because I said it's not a criticism, you're going to think it is a criticism. But
I'm
it's
used
just,
to it. I take it all the time on TikTok.
this is what I noticed that you said, and I just wanted to bring up this point from Dr. Copeland's book, that there are separate realities in every family. And for years, I've had multiple discussions with lots of families, and lots of parents say what you just said, Chris. They say, but my sons did this, and my other child did this, and my other... Everybody in the family, in the same family, you're doing the same thing with all the kids. They're all having a different experience, correct?
Yeah, not only is it correct, but our children also have.
Amir Odom, he does like reaction videos and commentaries on like certain, I don't know, current events. And he spoke about this as well when he did his video about no contact with people, with their family. Every sibling, every child has a different experience of their parents, especially as the age gaps get more and more like widen. With my siblings, it's not too much of a issue. I'm talking about the siblings that I have just strictly by my mom, because my dad has his other kids, and then my mom and my dad came together and made me. But the siblings I grew up in the house with, we're 2 years apart. So 2 years, and I'm the last one 2 years. So we don't have this like drastic experience of our mother, but we do have different experiences of our mother. However, when you start getting into 3, 4, 5, 6, some siblings are 10 years separated, you're not talking about the same parents, and you're definitely not talking about the same experience. And we do have to acknowledge that. So it doesn't matter that your other sons have this good relationship with you. They probably experience you differently. And I'm not saying this to her, but I'm going to speak strictly from my perspective, especially with my mom. There was definitely favoritism when it came to my brother. It was two girls, my sister, my brother was in the middle, and then it was me. And a lot of daughters experience this, that their mother, especially if it's a single mother, there seems to be this favoritism towards the son. He is like the golden child. It doesn't matter how disruptive he is or anything like that. It doesn't matter how good you are. He is the favorite. And I feel like I experienced that. So how you interacted with your daughter may not be how you interacted with your sons. And it's important to acknowledge that. But I'm not accusing this lady of that. Like, I don't know her.
I've never had the opportunity to talk. Like
Yeah.
we didn't come from a family where we just fought and yelled.
Yeah.
That wasn't our family, And in fact, a lot of things were shoved under a rug. And I have thought to myself, did I teach her how to communicate? Because a lot of things in my marriage was shoved under a rug, not on my end, but it takes two people to talk. And if there's not communication, so
I'm glad that she said something like that, because I said earlier, I think I said earlier, did she learn this avoidant communication style from you? And if you grow up in a confrontational household, you can learn to be confrontational, or you can learn to be conflict avoidant. And even if you grow up in a conflict avoidant household, I feel like you can do the same thing. However, I do notice that people who grew up in a conflict avoidant household tend to be more conflict avoidant than those who grew up in a very confrontational household, just in the sense that we address things more readily. So these parents who are saying that, oh, my child didn't come and tell me about this situation. Did you teach them that that's how you deal with confrontation, that you just sweep it underneath the rug, you don't talk about it? Because if so, then you're contributing to the problem.
Well, I can understand it's been 20 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to get that phone call on a Tuesday while you're working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hard. And then you call them after the person has passed? if they want you to?
I ask them, or a social worker will. I ask, and most times they do want to know, which I find interesting. They want to know that they've passed, and I understand that. I mean, being estranged myself, I think it would also be extremely jarring to find that out from like Facebook.
Yeah. So you said you now are estranged from your biological father.
Yes.
Why? Can we ask?
I say it's a million cuts that bled me dry. And I could give you one reason, but I think that it wouldn't reflect the entirety of the situation. And I think that someone would judge that one situation and say that wasn't enough of a reason. And in reality, it wasn't just that. It was a million things before that that led up to that.
Yeah. It sounds like it's never one thing. Yeah.
It's this recurring thing of there's so many things that have happened, and it almost gets to a point where like it's enough. And I remember when they talk about, like, I was reading the Atomic Habits, and it's talking about this plateau, not this plateau, but this like latent potential where you start doing something. Let's say like you start exercising or something like that, and when you first start doing it, you're not really doing that good. Maybe you're sore, this, that, and the third. You're not really lifting as good, whatever like that. And then you keep going, and at that month mark or that 2 month mark, you finally lift the bar that you've been struggling with the whole time. And you cannot say, hey, the final lift is what got me here. It was all the other lifts before that on top of the final lift that got you there, that allows you to eventually lift this weight that you were never able to lift before. So the same thing that goes on with these situations where there's like a final straw. Sometimes there's a dramatic event, but I do notice, and even for myself, that's not always the case. It's like, okay, it's enough. Like something has broken. Okay, the weight is too heavy from all these different things. It's like it's just enough. It's enough. Okay.
Days of the role trumping everything else are gone. People do not have the energy now to sustain a relationship that is draining or difficult or constantly conflictual. They do not have the energy to keep on maintaining that and live this very complex life.
I think it's a very interesting thing you just said. The day.
She did mention something very interesting, and this was something I was going to bring up because I didn't originally think I was going to do a reaction video, but along with the generational divide, there's a difference in how we see respect. Back in the day, Gen X, boomers, it was you respected the authority figure, right? Their title, their role, because they were a manager, because they were your parent, because they were elder, that guaranteed a certain level of respect. And now we as younger generations are like, respect is earned and it's based on how you treat me. So that is another disconnect, because if you don't have the generations before understanding that, they are going to be confused as to why we're not just taking this and taking that, because back then and there you didn't assess how an authority figure behaved. It was they were the authority figure, so they got respect and they got access and they got this continual chances to keep disrespecting you. And now we don't see respect that way. I'm glad she said those days are out the window. I don't have, I'm so glad she said this. It's so draining dealing with unhealthy people. It's crazy. Like, I personally think that my dad is clinically depressed. And I was just talking to my brother about this. And the last time I came to my hometown, like I said, for my niece's baby shower, he was asking me why I wasn't staying with my dad. And I told him straight up, I don't know how to deal with someone, a grown man who is depressed and won't acknowledge that he's depressed and won't get help for his depression. Because what he does is he tries to make me and other people around him his emotional punching bag, because he doesn't want to go to therapy. And the dude who was talking about how he reconciled with his daughter after 3 years, who's in the dark green blazer, he was saying that when his daughter recommended therapy, he was like, man, I'm a man. I don't really want to go to therapy, this and the third. That is not a new sentiment. It's been known that men are more reluctant to therapy than women. And I would say I understand, but I don't. But in the meantime, in between time, when you're not getting therapy, but you're still dealing with these issues, are the women and just other people around you supposed to accept this chaos that you have going on because you don't want to seek help for it? I just no, I'm not doing it. And that's kind of how I feel. Like if you don't want to seek the help, then don't think that I'm just supposed to stay here and deal with it. All right, y'all, that's the end of the video. So please comment and subscribe. And what I want you to comment is if you have a similar experience as the ones that the people in the video were sharing, or as the ones that I was sharing, because I really want to know how many other people out there are really experiencing this stuff. So I'm glad Oprah touched on this. I really do think this is an important subject, and this was a good conversation. So y'all have a nice day.